What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I'm out here in the shop. I'm finally getting around to putting the PPE tie rod ends, stage 3 tie rod ends that I bought like 3 months ago or 4 months ago, however long it's been. It's been a minute. Been kicking them around the shop and finally got a chance to get ready to put them on. So I thought I'd share with you guys the way I'm going about doing it. You don't have to go about doing it this way. You can take it to somebody, or if you got a lift, raise it up, pull the tires off, and make it a little easier on yourself. I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing it with the tires and wheels on it, and just lay it on the ground and taking one side off at a time and doing it. I'll show you what I got going on here. First off, this is the lower one is the stage 3 PPE forged tie rod, as you can see, and the upper one is the factory stock one that looks like it should be on a side-by-side or a go-kart or something, and they're bad about bending in here, and that's the reason we're replacing them. To get the factory one off, all I did was take the nut off right here, and I got an air chisel around there. You can hit the knuckle and jar it loose, or you can get a pickle fork on an air chisel and knock it right off of there. And then just take you a wrench or whatever you got. I used the 18-inch pipe wrench. That's what I had to take this one off. Before you get started on installing this one, you want to take your little set screws here out. There's one on that side, one over here on this side. Take them completely out so that you don't damage them when you're trying to put your wrench on here and they just get in the way. And the way I'm doing it is I'm taking these apart right here where this nut's at. This piece will completely unscrew out of here, and I'll show you that in a minute. But the first thing I did is, see that red mark on the floor right there? This is right beside the truck tire. Got a red mark here, and a red mark right here on the front part of it. You can see that. It's got dirt on it now, but anyway, that's where it's at. And take you right here to the other side and show you. Got a red mark right here that's in front of the tire. Come behind the tire, I got a red mark right here. And the way I did that is I have a Bosch GLL 380. You can use any kind of laser to do this. You can use string, set up some jack stands behind the wheel, in front of the wheel, and use a string. Also, I happen to have one of these, so this is what I'm using. This truck happens to have moto metal wheels on it that's got a center cap that's flat, or well, it ain't perfectly flat, but it's got a flat surface here and here, to where I can hold this up and set it on there like that right there, and it'll sit there, and I can get a reading off of it. And I'm gonna turn it on. This thing has 2 settings right here. You have the first notch is where it'll lock, and it shoots a laser beam like that. It has a second setting where it will level. So if you set it like that, you can see how the line moving there. That shoots a level line all around everywhere. You can see on the wall over there, there's a level line over there. So this thing, I've had this thing about 5 years, and it's come in really handy. I've done everything from rebuild my house, plumb studs, hang pictures, you name it, I've pretty much done it. I've used this to line up the front end of my 18-wheeler, the trailer, and all, drive axles and everything. So anyway, if you don't have a center cap that's halfway flat like this, you can use a piece of metal, go across here, across the face of the wheel, and then hold this to it, or something like that. But anyway, what I did was held this up here like this, just used my hand, and you can see, get it flat there, hand's kind of in the way, but you can see that lines up with the red mark there, and it lines up over there with the red mark on the floor. So that's what I did. I held it like that, and I put a mark on the floor with a red paint pen. I did that on each side, and that set my my toe end, where I know where my toe end's at. All right, guys, my heater ran out of fuel. I went ahead and left it off. You can probably hear me a lot better and understand what I'm saying here a lot better anyways. After you got your red marks on the floor, run your tape measure up under the truck, and I'm letting it overhang 1 inch to get a little bit more accurate measurement that way. That's a little carpenter's trick, metalworking trick also. Layout trick, whatever you want to call it. Come around on this side, look at your mark right there, and read the measurement. And we are at 89 7/8. Then you want to measure that on the front marks that you made in front of the wheel. So we'll go ahead and do that. All right, I've got it running in front of the tire right here now. And I've got it on 1 inch on the other side. We'll come down here and we'll get this measurement here. And we're at 89 1/2. So that gives us about 3/8 toe in between the front mark and the rear mark. And they're probably, I would say, 40 inches apart or something right there. So we have 3/8 in. And you know, if you were to extend this line out further in each direction, your measurement will get further off. 3/8 may be just a little bit much, but it gives us a baseline to know where the truck was set at to start with. So anyway, after you do that, you know you've got the truck pulled in straight. You don't want to jack it up or any of that. Next step is we'll take the tie rods off. All right, guys, this is what I got to take the tie rods off with. This is a tie rod pickle fork on an air chisel. You can get these without the air chisel. You just hit them with a hammer also. These came from Harbor Freight. You can get them off the internet, whatever. You can also just hit the knuckle with a hammer, and sometimes the vibration will knock them loose as well. Whatever works for you, but that's what I'm going to use because I'm not worried about ripping the boots because I'm not reusing these tie rods or going in the junk pile. If you're worried about ripping the boots, like I say, you can hit it with a hammer if you were reusing them or something like that, and the vibration will jar that loose. The only thing I have that'll fit this is an 18-inch crescent wrench. I don't have any wrenches that big. So that's what I'm using to take it loose. I'll show you up under the truck, but I'm not going to be able to film while I'm taking it loose because there's no room under here for me to do that. But there's the stock tie rod end right there. And I've already removed the nut off the top of it. You can see right there. I'm just going to take that pickle fork, go in between it, knock it loose, get on this end over here, and where it screws on to the other part right there. That's where it screws in. Get that pipe wrench on there, break it loose, and unspin the whole thing out of there. All right, I got the tie rod end on this side removed right there. Be careful when you're doing this. If you don't have the proper wrench, like I do not, you're using a pipe wrench or something that's not really for this. There's a little Alamite right here that greases your tie rod. Don't break it off when you're trying to get your wrench on here because the grease goes up in here and comes out in there and goes through a hole in the end of your tie rod end right there, and that's what keeps your tie rod greased on that end. So be mindful of that, and we'll go over here and get the new one set up for install. All right, first thing you want to do is just unscrew this right here out of the new tie rod. These PPEs will unscrew right here like this, and they are really, really stiff on this joint here, and well, this one too, as far as that goes. But this makes it a lot easier. You're not trying to fight this whole thing up in there. So you can get this screwed in straight on this end here without cross-threading it or any of that stuff. It's kind of long-winded, so it takes a minute. All right, so once you get it unscrewed there, you want to go ahead and pull these Allen set screws out right here with your Allen wrench. And we'll go ahead and do that before we get started. That way when we put our pipe wrench on here, we don't damage them trying to tighten when we tighten this up. These are your set screws there. They're small, so don't lose them. It keeps this joint from turning right here. Go ahead and pull that one out. And this is supposed to turn right here, but it does not turn easily. So you'll have to do it with a wrench once you get it installed on there. So right now all we're going to do is stick this in the piece under the truck there that screws into, tighten it up with a wrench. All right, once you get that piece there started back up in there, you can grab the end of it here and pull it over to the side like that. It is a little stiff. You got a pretty well pull on it. And then you can get your other part of your tie rod in here as well. And you kind of got to get it wherever it's got to go right there to start it. And you see this end is stuck in the wheel in here, but there's a spot on this right here, right behind this nut, where you put a wrench on. See the flat spots right here? You put a wrench right there and you hold this with one hand. You take your wrench and this here will spin inside of here. And it's a little tricky and I'm not going to be able to film it, but take my word for it, it'll work. You can get it started. At least on this truck you can anyway. And if you have a wider offset wheel, it'll be easier for you. If you got stock wheels, I'm not sure. But with these 20s, there's enough room here that it'll work. So let me go ahead and get this started and I'll be right back. All right guys, I got it to start right there on the first 2 threads probably, by putting that wrench right there on it. And then once you do that, you get a little more leverage and this will bend down a little further right here. This joint will flex more and you can get it like that right there. And then all you got to do is tighten her on up, run it on back up to where you get it to where this end here will go in that hole there. You'll have to probably spin your nut back up a little bit like that. Anyway, what you want to do is get it where you get it all tightened back up to where this will go in right there and you can get your nut on it without moving your wheel. You don't want to be pushing on your wheel because then it throws your alignment off. But as long as you don't push on it or anything or adjust it, you just get it to where this will slip right in there and put your nut on it. You haven't changed anything. And you have your reference marks on the floor to go and check it out there. So let me get through running this up. And we'll get the end of it stuck back in here, and then we'll adjust it. All right, guys, we got it pretty well installed there. You go ahead and tighten your nut up on that one there on the outside, and then I'm going to get my laser and get out here on the hub and check my red marks on the floor, and I'm going to adjust it because it's not correct. And the way you adjust it is you take a wrench and you put on these flat spots right here. Camera's probably not picking it up, but there's flat spots right there on that right here, if you can see that. But you turn this right there. Let's see if we can get a better view of that. You see how it's moving there? Anyway, that's the way you adjust it. And let's see, if you turn it this away, that's going to pull your wheel in, and if you go this away, it's going to push your wheel out. So that's the way you center your steering wheel and you set your toe in. Once you get that set how you want it by setting your marks on the floor, if you're doing this with strings and jack stands on each side, however, once you get it where you want it, you snug this down here, tighten it up, put your set screws back in here, the both of them, and tighten them up as well, and you will be good to go. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'm going to get my measurements where I want them and get them adjusted out how I want them. All right, I got everything installed on there. I've got my set screws back in here, tightened down. Got this nut here tight. There's a flat spot right here where you can put a wrench to keep this from trying to rotate as you're tightening that. You want to make sure that once you get this on there, that this here is not like cocked over one side and putting your tie rod in here in a bind, because it can break. So you want to make sure it's kind of in the center there so it's got movement where it can move around like it should, and that everything looks good. All we got to do now is grease it. I'm gonna go get the grease gun and do that in just a minute, and I'm going to back the truck up and pull it back up and put some fresh new marks on the floor and double check my alignment again, but I think I've got it pretty close. And the reason that it was 3/8 I know is because I turned the torsion bars up when I put these tires on here about 2 months ago, and so that's the reason that I got a 3/8 measurement. It should be like 1/8, somewhere in that range. 1/16 also work. I would say a 1/16 to 3/16 would probably get you by. 3/8 is a little bit much, so I think that's why. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get that taken care of. All right, guys, I backed it up, pulled it up a couple times, and checked my measurements again. I did have to do just a little bit more adjustment. I got it down to where I got about an 1/8 inch toe in now. I'm pretty happy with that. I'm gonna leave it alone. You know, this is not the most accurate way that you can do this, I'm sure. It's what I got to work with, it's what I use, and I've used it a couple other times, 3 or 4 other times actually, and so far, no problems. Anyway, so you could also do this, like I say, with string and a couple jack stands or something, set it up. As long as you got your reference point to go off of, and it was pretty right before, you got something to go off of, you can make it work. Get it lined up later if you want to. If you don't, your tires, do what you want to do. Anyway, I'm done. Tired, calling it a night. Thanks for watching. Hit like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We'll see you guys in the next video.